I'm Wendy Capewell, an experienced counsellor and psychotherapist. I work with so many people who feel that they're the only ones struggling with the issues that they share with me. Possibly, like many of you, they feel so alone. And so the aim of this podcast is to talk to guests who have their own stories to share, their experience of the struggles that they've been through, or maybe they're continuing to live with, offering their insights as well as their inspiring journey. So let me introduce my guest. Oh, goodness me. I've got a delightful lady with me today. We've been chatting beforehand and we've both been laughing about different things. And one of them was how to pronounce this delightful lady's name. She is Margo Jacquot. I think I've got it right. Jacquot, Margo Jacquot. Thank you.
Perfect.
She's from Chicago. And wow, she's a nationally renowned speaker on LGBTQ inclusion, parenting teens, trauma recovery, and the connection between the brain science, our nervous system, and mental health. I mean, there's such a lot in there, Margo. I feel I'm in very esteemed company here. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Wendy. It's lovely to be here with you or be there with you. And I think you're lovely company.
Well, I say ditto. I think you are too. We've connected, made a really good connection, I think, already. And yet, how you're, met thousands of miles apart. And yet, like I say, it's almost as if we're just together. It's just so comfortable. So, yeah, tell me.
Our nervous systems like each other.
Yeah, that sounds nice, doesn't it? Okay, so do you want to tell the audience any more about yourself, or shall we start talking about our nervous systems already? Where would you like to kind of expand on this a bit more?
Well, this, I'll tell you, when I started doing work with myself and with clients around the nervous system, I can't tell you the looks that I got from people as I was trying to explain this to them. And finally, I thought, I don't need to tell them all about what's happening. The details are not that important. The science is not that important. Some people are interested, but what they really care about is this going to help them feel better, right? That's everything somebody comes to a therapist for. Is this going to help them feel better? So I had done the EMDR training and had been so impressed with Bessel van der Kolk's work with the brain and really understanding what's happening in people's brains. It felt to me like it just unlocked, the mystery of therapy. Like it's what's happening for people is about our experiences and how they have affected our brains and our bodies. And then I took a training, the somatic experiencing training, which is Peter Levine's work. And what they started talking about in this training was about the nervous system. And I kind of rolled my eyes and thought, oh, for crying out loud. But I will tell you, I am a complete convert. It has changed the way I work with people, the way I understand people, the way I understand myself, the way I parent, the way I am as a boss, all aspects of my life. So I'm so happy to be talking to other people about this because I think it can really change the way we relate to ourselves and the way we relate to other people. So do you want me to tell you a little bit about what I understand about the nervous system without getting into the details?
Yeah. And I'm with you as well. I mean, yes, we can talk about the technical side of everything and the technical side of what we do. I always say to my clients, I don't do psychobabble. Let's put it in plain English that you can understand. You and I, we're just ordinary people. You just want to know how to do things differently, what's going on in your body or your brain or wherever else, and you want to feel better. Well, so why should we go into this language that they just sit there scratching their heads and probably switch off from? So yeah, Go ahead.
Okay, right. Without getting into too much psychobabble, which I'm with you. I used to teach graduate school, and I would not allow the students in my class to write about or talk about psychobabble. It was very frustrating for them and kind of delightful for me. So, really, what feels important to me about our nervous systems is that this is something that's operating within all of us all of the time. And in a relationship, so seriously, when you and I first met, even though we're on a Zoom screen and we are thousands of miles apart, my nervous system was reading your nervous system to see what is the, for lack of better words, what is the vibe? What does it feel like to be with you? And that's the information that our nervous system gives us. It's, there's all kinds of nerves in our eyes and, around our eyes and in our heads and all the way down to the middle of our body. And then a different nervous system picks up. But that nervous system is always looking at the other and trying to determine, are you safe? Are you happy? Do I need to be careful around you? And it's under the wire. We're not aware of it, but we do it all the time. And I'm doing that if I'm driving. I'm doing that if I'm sitting and talking to somebody. I'm doing that if I'm just thinking about someone. So what'll happen is my nervous system, my mood, my feelings, my behavior will follow what's happening in my nervous system. If I walk in the room and I look at you and I get that vibe, AKA my eyes have now scanned your face and the facial expression and the posture and the muscle tone, and I'm seeing that you are irritable, my nervous system will go into a bit of a protective state. Mm-hmm. And if I have lived with someone historically who was abusive or difficult, or I just have something hard in my past, I might fly up into the nervous system states of fight, flight, or freeze, which is really the point. And then, not unlike what I think happened with Will Smith at the Oscars, where I think that's a whole story, but he went from a historically frozen nervous system state to marching up into a fight state and whacking Chris Rock across the face. So we can lose control of ourselves if we fly into these nervous system states without really understanding what we're doing or being able to catch ourselves or get ourselves grounded again. So it impacts all of our relationships and all of our interactions.
Yeah. And I think, as you say, we don't even know about it. But I think if I could begin, when I was growing up, I felt I was always on edge. I didn't know what kind of mood either parent would be in. Mm-hmm. And so my antennae were up, and it was, I got to walk on eggshells here and test the tension in the atmosphere. I've got to really figure this all out. And as you say, as a small child, as an adult, in a relationship, whatever, we're doing this. And I think once my antennae was up, that set a pattern for me in my life. My antennae were up an awful lot of my life. In fact, it still is. I can sense that atmosphere. I can read somebody's mood. I can hear it, even if I've only just met them. Mm. It's interesting how some people I think are more sensitive to than others. But yeah, it can send you, as you say, you go in that protective mode, the fight, flight, freeze response. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's a perfect description of it. And you had those antennae up and you needed to. And even once you grew up and moved out of the house, that didn't go away. And if you didn't address that in your life somehow in some kind of way, therapy, meditation, yoga, something that helped you regulate your nervous system better, it would be very easy to react to people in a way that you didn't want to, because you'd feel defensive and self-protective, and maybe you would shut down. I mean, I don't know you, Wendy. I don't know what your style was, but maybe you would shut down or disengage or have to leave, or some people have to do the fight response, which that doesn't seem like you, but
Oh, there are times I could lash out. Don't worry. I mean, verbally, not. Mm-hmm. But I think it just depends, because we can't predict how we're going to react in that when our nervous system is out of balance. We don't know whether we're going to just, as you say, shut down. We don't know whether we're going to freeze. We don't know if we're going to fight. And that is verbally or just saying no, whatever. We can't tell that, which is always the fascinating part for me. It will just react. And I guess that's how our bodies do it.
Yeah, which, I mean, thank goodness, because we need that emergency response system where we're not thinking about it, right? If I'm crossing a street and, I tell my teenagers not to do this, and thankfully they don't seem to, but if I'm crossing the street and I'm looking down at my phone, we've all seen people do that, and I'm looking down at my phone and I look up and I see a bus barreling toward me. I don't want to have the ability to stop and say, well, let's see, it'll take me 2.4 seconds to move forward or 1.6 to move back. No, I will be run down. So I need to be able to react. So thank goodness our systems can do that. However, we can get ourselves into some really complicated, sticky relational situations or misery, right? So you see people, I'm sure, who are driving around like they're in an armored tank, and everybody on the road is their enemy. That to me is someone who is just either constantly in a state of fight or just always below that threshold. And they get into their car and they are doing battle. Or people who something happens and they flee. They can't stand to stay there. So they'll emotionally leave, they'll physically leave. And the other person who they're dealing with feels completely abandoned. Or somebody might be in a freeze state. We used to play freeze tag here when I was a kid. Did you play freeze tag, Wendy?
Probably had a different name, yeah. But I guess it's a bit like statues, we might call it here. Yeah.
There you go. Right. Same thing. Right. So here, when I talk about people being in a freeze state, the person I'm speaking with will think I'm talking about a statue, sort of playing statues. And it's not at all. It's that we're emotionally disconnected. We're just not present. So our mouth is moving, we're talking, we're numbed out, we're just not present. And sometimes it's drugs and alcohol that do that, but sometimes it's just our nervous system is in that shut down state. We're playing statues in our relationships.
Yeah. And it does affect relationships, doesn't it? So much. I think you get couples where they're either in one of those states, and maybe they've brought back into the relationship, or maybe because of their past, or maybe they brought it in because it's what's happened in their relationship and they go back into the same old patterns.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's it. The word patterns, Wendy, that's perfect. Because what in our brains, what fires together, wires together. The more we do something, the more our brains will do it, the more our brains will do it. So those do become patterns, and patterns we cannot choose or control very easily at all. And nobody likes that. I want to be in charge of what I'm saying and doing. I don't want all of a sudden my brain to flip a switch and I'm yelling at somebody or storming out of the room. I mean, who wants to be doing that?
Yeah. And I think that the problem is then that when we go, our nervous system is out of kilter like that. I think sometimes, they disengage. And I notice it with working with couples is that they'll talk about an argument they've had, but they spew out all kinds of stuff that is not related to what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then they say, I didn't say that. And their partner says, but you did. And it's that kind of same old stuff that they're spewing. And sometimes it's so venomous, but they don't. I think if we get that out, if our nervous system is really out of kilter, as I said, we can just spew out that stuff. And we're not engaged at all. We're not in control, as you say, with our mouths and our brain. It's not in sync at all.
Yeah. And what a problem that is. And oftentimes, you're right, when people come out of it, and somebody turns to them and says, I can't believe you said that, they'll say, said what? You know,
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
they're genuinely confused. And they don't necessarily remember all that they said, or it feels completely justified to them without realizing it's their own reactivity. I mean, I say to people in therapy and my kids and, you know, in my life frequently that we can't control what we feel, but we have to get in charge of what we say and do. We just have to, because otherwise we're going to hurt ourselves or we're going to hurt other people.
Yeah, exactly. Again, there's something else, because I did an Instagram live this morning because that cropped up in a session with a couple. When people have that, you made me say, you made me, you made me, and I just said, what? You made me react in that way. Hold on a minute. Hold on. You are going to give your power away to the other person and say that they made you?
Right.
Hold on a minute. No one's going to take my power away. I have a choice. If I'm angry, I've got a choice in the way I respond and react. But if I just go, you made me, then I'm not taking responsibility, but I'm also saying, you've got my power because you can do that to me. And it is about our nervous system being out of kilter, isn't it? And I think the worst possible scenario I can think of that is so damaging is domestic violence. You made me hit you.
Yes.
And when you think about it in those terms, that is the worst possible scenario, really. You made me. But that is saying that I'm not responsible for my actions.
Right. Exactly. I'm responsible for all the good that I do in the world, but I have no responsibility for anything bad that I do. It's you. You made me do it. And that's the nervous system and brain's experience, is that the experience is that whatever's happening is outside of us, not realizing that it's my system reacting. It's my brain. It's my nervous system that's responding. My brain, my nervous system went into a fight or flight mode. I am now responding in a way that really is out of context with what just happened. In what scenario could someone do anything that would justify me smacking them? I mean, right? But boy, it sure feels that way. I had to defend myself. What? And I'm sure you've worked with folks who have been involved in domestic violence situations, and they'll say, I had to stop the arguing, so I had to slap you to get you to shut up. Or, you know, I mean, I'm just trigger warning folks, but those kinds of statements, as opposed to, oh, you said something, that's a patterned response in me. I watched my mother get hit when I was younger. I felt so out of control. I went into a fight mode and I hit you. Oh, right. And that's really the place we're trying to get people to. And again, it's not about, well, you're a rotten person because you hit this person, or you yelled at them, or you ran away, or you shut down. It's not about that. It's about trying to understand where things really are originating, so that, to your point, who wants to feel like they've given away their power? There is nothing more empowering than being able to be in charge of how you respond under duress.
Yeah. And of course, it's not easy because our body will take over. It does take us to be aware. It does take us to really think before we open that mouth or react in some other way. You're right. It takes practice, and we're not going to get it right every single time. And if we don't, I always say, well, we're humans and we make mistakes, but at least you can go back and say, do you know what? I did that very well there. I'm really sorry. And I'll try better, because we can't get it right every time.
Right.
It is a reaction, isn't it?
It is automatic.
Awareness. It's automatic, but it does mean that if we practice it enough, we can do things differently.
Yeah, there are some things that people can do that sound absolutely ridiculous to tone their nervous system, their fight, flight, or freeze. It's called your vagal nerve. And to really get that rest or coming out of that fight, flight, or freeze response, there are things people can do. And there's some folks who have written about this, at least over here. Deb Dana is one of those. Stephen Porges has written he's written some very dense material, but he's lightened it up a little bit. Peter Levine, these are some folks who have written about this, but Deb Dana has a great book. Some of the things that people can do are they can gargle, they can yodel, they can sing, they can plunge their face in the freezer, they can plunge their hands in cold water, they can take a super cold shower, which sounds to me like that would send me into fight or flight, but actually it helps the part of our nervous system that rests and calms down. It helps us get into that system, shockingly. Or in Chicago, I just step out my front door because it's been in the 30s, which is very cold. So.
And that's it, isn't it lovely when we think we can use those tactics, those techniques, and we can take back our power.
We can. And to your point, it's a lot of practice. And seeing a therapist like you and having someone who can help people identify what they're doing. Yoga, meditation, all of those things, deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, it just takes practice. It didn't happen overnight. To get there, it's not going to happen overnight to get out of it.
No, you're right. It's been delightful. It's just been so fascinating. And I think you've given some really good tips already. I was going to ask what people could take away with themselves, but I think, yeah, those tips that you've already provided, but is there anything else one real good point that they could take away?
The nervous system, our brains can change. Get yourself in with a good therapist who understands what's happening, and this can change. You do not have to live your life this way.
Yeah. Great. Oh, I've loved this conversation. It's been really, really interesting. Thank you. I'm going to put all your details in the show notes for when it's out there. But one easy way that people can get in touch with you, Margo.
Well, probably the easiest way, and again, thank you for the invitation, Wendy. It's delightful, really, always delightful to speak with you. So the best way to reach me is through our website. It is thejunipercenter.com. Juniper like the tree, not Jupiter like the planet. Thejunipercenter.com.
And center, I'm imagining you're spelling it the American way, which is CENTER.
Indeed.
Whereas we Brits spell it CENTRE, but it's not that way. So I just want to make that clear for anyone who's listening and spells it the English way, because they won't find it as readily.
I appreciate your cultural awareness here. That would not have even occurred to me. So thank you. You are a sensitive soul. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Margo. I've just loved this. And I hope we speak again soon. You take care.
Thank you. Be well.
I hope you found this episode interesting as well as helpful. Do get in touch if you would like to learn more about working with me. My email address is info@wendycapewell.co.uk. Take good care of yourself. Until next time.